Every week, so much happens in your own country that it's often hard to keep track of the news at home, let alone around the world. So the Global Summary is our weekly rundown of the biggest news events from around the globe. In the next 8 minutes, I'm going to walk you through some of the biggest stories, but we'll be moving fast. So if you want to find out more about any of them, then there are article recommendations in the description. This week's biggest stories include the planned global corporate tax, Italy and Europe rejecting China, and Trump's 2-year Facebook ban getting solidified. Before we start, a huge thanks to all of our Patreon backers, like Peter V. These people make videos like this one possible, and in return for their donations, they get benefits like early access to videos, a whole calendar of exclusive live events, the ability to vote on video topics, and much more. See what you can get and sign up by clicking the link in the description. If you've been watching TLDR videos closely, you'll know that the G7 held their annual summit last week, with one of the major topics being the proposed global corporate tax. This is the proposal that all countries around the world would set their corporation tax rate at no lower than 15%. In effect, preventing tax havens from undercutting other nations with super low tax rates. The proposal would also see tax revenues redirected to where the sales were made. So, for example, if a country booked all of their accounts in Ireland but made sales across Europe, then corporation tax revenue would have to be redirected to other countries on the basis of sales made. If you want to know more about the plan, then the full video explaining it is linked in the description. Anyway, it was announced over the weekend that Biden's proposal had proved popular with the rest of the G7, and it seems that even the companies who are going to be most impacted were happy with the plan, with Google, Amazon, and Facebook all signalling approval. Not everyone's super keen though, with many, including Oxfam, saying that the new rules are still too weak. They're arguing that the minimum of a 15% tax rate is still very low, far lower than any of the G7 countries currently have their corporation tax rate set at, and barely higher than countries like Ireland. This isn't the end of the line though. Obviously, these 7 nations alone can't approve a global plan. So this idea will need to be signed off via a global accord later this year. However, with backers including some of the world's most influential countries and companies, it looks like the plan could be implemented pretty soon. We mentioned Facebook a moment ago, so let's stay with the social media giant and discuss their handling of former President Trump. You might remember that in the aftermath of the January 6th Capitol siege, Facebook and seemingly every other platform online banned Trump from their platform. Well, that ban on Facebook was recently upheld by their independent oversight board, but the board did criticize the fact that the ban was just indefinite, requiring Facebook to put some terms on the ban, something they've now done, remarking that the former president will remain banned for at least 2 years, with Facebook's Nick Clegg remarking that if on his eventual return Trump breaks the rules again, he will receive a further ban. It's also worth noting that Trump's so-called social media site also shut down last week. From the desk of Donald J. Trump was Trump's response to being banned by social media networks. And it was a section of his website where he posted his musings, allowing followers to share these on more traditional platforms. However, it seems that this endeavour wasn't as successful as his team hoped, picking up only 212,000 engagements in the entire site's lifetime, a number that some of his more popular tweets could achieve in one go. So maybe it's not surprising that the project was confirmed as shuttered on June 2nd, and does demonstrate how powerful social media giants can be. It's not just Trump though, with famed feminist author NAOMI getting banned from Twitter this weekend. Although her case was due to a series of tweets where she claimed that vaccines contain software programs that can receive uploads, going on to compare Dr. Anthony Fauci to Satan. This growing hostility towards Fauci is something we discussed on the TLDR US channel yesterday, so you can learn more by clicking the link in the description. However, it's clear that social media sites are still willing to fight misinformation, despite the heat they're facing, because it goes without saying, the vaccine doesn't contain any software. Let's head to Europe, and more specifically the NORDSTREAM 2 pipeline, a very controversial gas line connecting Russia to Germany, with Putin announcing this weekend that gas will begin flowing in a matter of days. This timing is significant too, because it means that gas will likely begin flowing before Putin meets with Biden in Geneva, a meeting designed to try and ease tensions between Russia and the West. The pipeline's completion isn't likely to do that though, with Biden being a critic of the pipeline due to three main concerns: the environmental impact of greater gas usage, the influence it will give Russia over Germany and Northern Europe, and the concern that with the pipeline in place, Russia will have the capacity to bypass and bully states like Ukraine, where gas would have previously passed through. Staying in Europe, Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi has symbolically cut ties with China, shifting their foreign policy to make it strongly pro-European and Atlanticist, in line with Italy's historical anchors. You might be wondering what this even means. Weren't Italy already firmly European? Well, Italy was the first G7 member to sign up to China's Belt and Road Initiative, putting them right at the centre of China's attempt to increase global influence. This decision by Draghi sees the country snap back to the side of Europe and the US, something that will be praised by some, but lead others to worry that walking away from China might damage the country, especially when recovering from the pandemic. However, this is a stance that's supported by most of Europe, with MEPs voting just over a week ago to freeze the ratification of an investment deal between the EU and China. The deal was first proposed only months ago, but with attitudes towards the Asian superpower shifting, the vote's verdict was damning, with the vast majority voting to halt the deal. Said vote doesn't hold any legal weight. The negotiations can continue, but it does show a serious hurdle for the deal, as it would need MEP's support to pass, something that it doesn't look like it has as things currently stand. Speaking of China, the country announced last week a major change to its family policy. Up until 2016, the country was famous for its one-child policy, before it shifted to a two-child policy, in an attempt to turn around demographic trends and drive an increase in birth and population rates. It seems that this hasn't been successful enough though, with the rule recently being changed to 3 children per family. Some will welcome this move, but others criticise the fact that the country continues to control family planning decisions so closely. However, it's also symptomatic of China's wider problem. The issue that by some metrics, the country's population is beginning to contract, a problem that could spell disaster further down the road. The country hopes that this change will ultimately reverse the trend, but only time will tell. You can find out more about China's issue and the problem of declining populations more generally in our video linked below. Let's end with an interesting story out of Denmark, where the country's parliament have approved a new artificial island in Copenhagen, which is set to house 35,000 people across 2.6 square kilometres. This island, which will be connected to the mainland via a ring road, tunnel and metro line, is also set to do more than just expand the city, with it featuring a dam system around the perimeter, which is designed to protect the harbour from rising sea levels and storm surges. However, some environmentalists are concerned by the project, complaining about the huge carbon impact of transporting materials to the site, including the 80 million tonnes of soil required to create the peninsula alone. Add to that concerns about how the artificial island will impact the movement of the sea, ecosystems, and water quality. So those were some of the biggest global news stories from the last week, and if 8 minutes wasn't enough for you, then there's links to further reading in the description. If you think we missed anything, then comment below the stories you'd like to see us cover in future episodes. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and ring the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.